Welcome back to Maker's Journey Workshop. I'm Benjamin Davies, and today we're making a paper towel holder. We're making a seamless transition paper towel holder. I'm gonna show you the tricks, tips that I've used to make these over the years, and hopefully you can do it in your shop too. All right, let's get after it. We're gonna start out with a piece of 12-inch, 1-inch OD tubing with 11 gauge wall. I've done these out of 13 gauge wall. 13 is a little bit too thin, but you can make it work. I'm also going to cheat and use my torch to heat the tip to do most of this forging. If you're doing this in a forge, you can quench this metal. Be sure, as you quench, even though this end doesn't look hot, that it's pointing away from you, because it'll shoot hot water out, and it's just shooting boiling, scalding water out. Don't have your face over it. Don't get careless. Make sure it's pointing away from you. And be in a spot where you can get the shop a little bit messy. It's okay. But we're going to use the tube. We're going to use the torch for most of this, like I said. So if you have a torch or an induction forge, it's a great way to go. The rest of this pipe still heats up, but you can take it and dip it in water. All right, let's start forging. Hey, real quick, if you're new to the channel or just returning and not familiar with what we do here, my name is Benjamin Davies. My wife and I run BD Iron here in Shelby, North Carolina. We've wanted to start a YouTube forever, and we got into it last fall. Our YouTube, all about is providing as much value as possible and trying to teach the way we had to figure out some things the way that we came up, and hoping to share that for you as you start your blacksmith journey and trying to turn this side hustle into a real career. Right now, we're in the middle of our 30 for 30 challenge, which means we're doing 30 YouTubes in 30 days. We're literally smack dab in the middle of it. Our plan, just to provide as much value as possible. We hope that you're enjoying it. Something you could do for us in return that we'd really appreciate, smash that subscribe button. And if you know somebody that you think would enjoy or appreciate this channel, make sure you share it with them. All right, let's get back to the show. And what happened there was we got a thicker wall. And so as we were drawing in that taper, we were actually making that wall thicker, the wall of the pipe, which means we've got probably about a 3/16 wall to work with right there now. Also, we forged really slow. We weren't taking big heavy hammer blows, and we used the area where the shelf of the anvil met the face of the anvil as a cradle to protect the pipe from collapsing. You can do this with angle iron. You can do it in your vise like we did in this video right here. You see it. Go check that out after this one. And pipe's just such a fun thing to forge. But if you go too fast and you don't have a way to protect it from caving in on itself, it's going to be a really frustrating thing to forge. So now we're going to upset this in level, and that's all from upsetting. Just take your time, go slow. Heat is going to be your friend here. That's all there is to it. Now we got a little hole, and that hole's centered. And that hole's gonna be really helpful to us later. And we got a nice little swell at the bottom, so now it's not just a boring pipe anymore. All we're gonna do is the same thing on the next side. I'm not gonna show you again. If you need to watch that process over and over again, watch it. But we're gonna move on to the next thing. All right, we're all forged up and ready to go, and we're closed off, and that hole got even smaller. That's gonna be really beneficial to us, making that seamless transition later on as we put this piece together. So next, what we need to do is, we're gonna work on our base plate. I'm using a 6-inch plate here today. First, we're gonna go over how to find center. Some easier ways that you can lay out at home with just a ruler, and we're gonna show you how to do that really quick. Oh, and a speed square. All right, that's all there is to it. And that should be dead center, and it looks pretty good to me. And that method's called the chord method. You just draw out 3 lines, all the same length, bisect that line, and then draw square off of that, and they should all intersect like they do right there in the middle. It's a really easy way to find a circle. I remember circles were something I struggled with early, so I had a hard time. Sometimes I'd weld a peg to a table and then pull out a string and try to get it tied up and make cutouts that way. Sometimes I'd take an angle grinder disc. That was a good one, 4.5 inch, 5 inch disc, and I would just trace it out. So there's all kinds of creative ways you can make circles in the shop if you don't have any, and square is gonna work okay too. You're just looking for a nice base. If I didn't say so earlier, this is a 3/16 plate. It being 5 to 6 inches wide is gonna be plenty. We're gonna go ahead and center punch this, and that's gonna help us later. And if you had to do several of these, say you're making 10 of these for a show, I would find the measurements of this one, and I would drill a really small hole. I would clamp the other 9 to it, and I'd drill that really small hole all the way through it, and that way you know where center's at, because that's gonna help us as we go in the forge. All right, we're gonna center punch this, and we're going into the forge. All right, so we got a center punch. And what that's going to do is it's going to set up for a nice plug weld later as we work on doing this kind of seamless transition, hidden transition. And if you do this on a power hammer or a hydraulic press, it'll really jump in the center and almost dome it just a little bit for you. It'll raise it for you. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to chamfer. You can do this with like a rounding hammer and you'll get a more aggressive look, or you can take your time and overlap your hammer blows and it'll look just like one smooth, seamless thing. Don't get too hung up on it. Don't rabbit hole. Rotate, hit, rotate, hit, rotate, hit, and work off the edge of the anvil doing a half on, half off hammer blow. What's that mean? Yeah, exactly. Just like that. And that helps you get that chamfer. All right, so for the next part, we're going to make a finial. If you paid attention at all to the thumbnail, you can kind of figure out where we're going with this. And we're going to start with my favorite stock. Let me guess, 3/8 again. Yeah, I'm pretty sure other than like 1/4 inch, 5/16 and 3/8 when I started out, I don't think I worked anything else. Maybe some flat bar here and there as back plates for some hook racks and things like that. But I could forge this stuff all day and, you know, not kill myself. You step up to a 1/2 inch bar or even anything bigger, man, it's taking some energy to move that, and it's hard to produce production pieces that way. All right, so we got our tapering. And what we're gonna do next, it's one of my favorite things to do, and it's just so fun because it really gives you the latitude to be free and have some fun. And we're just gonna scroll this up with the scrolling tongs. And when I say scroll, I don't mean a perfect scroll. I mean, we're gonna wind this thing up like a tight little knot, and it can be so extremely fun. I'm gonna do 2 of them in the next take so I can get some different angles for you. So each one might look different from take to take, but just really fun. I'm gonna try to chalk up as much heat as I can. Heat's gonna be your friend here. And the first thing we're gonna wanna do is kind of where that heat stops is you're going to bend back all the way to there, and then you'll focus on getting the rest of this wrapped up and around. And that bend will be kind of your stopping point. You want to make sure you don't get a hard spot. Hard spots are not your friend. That means little straight sections. So take your time on this taper and work it out. One thing I've noticed forging tapers by hand over the years is you're coming down at an angle and crashing into it, and I always get like a little swell right here at the end of my taper. So I always make sure I go back and planish that out and planish out just a little bit behind it. If not, again, you'll get another one of those little hard spots. Just something I've learned. Give it a try. Hopefully it works for you. All right, let's get back to it. All right, so we got that just about all the way wound up, but we got this loose little piece hanging out there. You'll notice we didn't finish it tight. It's gonna be hard to get in there with a hammer. So I'm gonna cheat and I'm gonna use a torch. If you don't have a torch, go back in the fire, bring it to the vise, and use your pliers, use your tongs, use whatever. You just wanna wrap that thing up nice and tight and make sure that it's finishing at a point where it's not gonna prick out because even though it's not really sharp at all, still doesn't feel good. Not a good feel. We talk about this all the time with our pieces. If you're making something that a homeowner is going to touch, it can be the best looking design in the world. If it is offensive or abrasive to the hand, it is no good as a product in my eyes. That is what I was taught earlier on, and it just seems to be a good idea. This is important with finishes too. So if you're using some of those waxy finishes or some of those oil finishes, which you can't get around with food, there's a lot of people I know that will send their food products out and they send them out unfinished so the person can seal them themselves, because as the oil sits on them, as it sets up and sits around for days, weeks, months, however long you have to tote these items around for, it gets sticky and then it'll attract dust. So just something to think about with your finish. Finish is really important, and the way something feels is extremely important as well. So it's not just looks. And so now we have all 1, 2, 3 pieces. So now we're gonna do a little bit of drilling, a little bit of thread cutting and tapping, and a little bit of polishing up, and we're done. All right, let's finish strong. Now I think the most ideal way to drill this would be choke it up in a lathe and then press it onto the bit that way, and that would be the way to go. I don't have a lathe. So I'm just gonna do this. Yep, I'm just gonna put it in a regular vise and put it at a good angle where I can see instead of trying to get down here in parallel. Try to be comfortable. It is round, but it's going through enough material of the vise that I doubt it's gonna grip and rotate on me. And I'm not gonna have to worry about pinching it either. So I'm gonna go with a 5/16 is gonna be my last bit. That's always what's worked for me. And my bits, the way I buy them, they go like 3/16, 1/4 inch, 5/16, 3/8, 1/2 inch, just generic. There might be some machinist on there or somebody else that says do it a certain way. 5/16 has always worked for me for cutting a 3/8 thread. So that's what I'm gonna go with here today. I'm gonna start out with a 1/4 inch bit and then work my way up to the 5/16 and go slow. You wanna make sure you go in there as straight as possible. It's not gonna be perfect, especially since you're hand drilling it, but you're still gonna be able to achieve it. I did this for years without having a drill press. All right, let's get to it. If You have to drill several things the same drill bit size, and there's going to be a progression. Drill everything that needs to be at 1/4 inch, and then go to 5/16 and 3/8. So you're not sitting there changing and swapping bits all day. Done this in the past, it's a real pain. This is why I've always talked about, if you'll notice in any of our videos, especially these guys right here, we always talk about working in progression. Whenever you're doing batches of things, try to do each step one by one. Forge all the leaves, then do all the curves, then do all the bob punches, so on and so forth. You're going to get a more consistent result that improves over time, and that produces consistent work versus doing one from start to finish and then the next from start to finish. So just something that works for me. Give it a try, see if it works for you. And so I like to use the countersink just to give a little kiss along the edges and right before we tap everything. All right, so let's talk tap and die for a second. Years ago, I did a job that's much similar to like what we're doing today. I did window treatments this way. And I got to the final stages, had everything forged up and cleaned up. I just needed to do some tapping and threading. And we finally got to the point where it's time to cut some threads. And I used my hardware freight taps and dies, and they were cheap, inexpensive. And I was happy to have them. And I wrestled with those things for probably about 3 hours, and my timeline is ticking. I've got to get this job done. And I finally went to Lowe's, and I bought these things from Irwin. I'm not sponsored, but I love these Irwin bits, tap and die bits, for 2 reasons. This part right here, this shank, the threads don't start right on the tip. We've got about 1/2 inch before the threads start, so it kind of eases it into your hole to where it's smaller, and that way you get started on the cut. The little cheap taps and dies I had, the threads started right at the end. On this piece right here, it's a similar concept. It actually has a little wider part that you can actually fit around the tip before it starts cutting. And so instead of trying to wrestle that, getting it to cut and lining it up at the same time, this actually kind of sits on there and spins around. That makes life so much easier if you're doing these by hands. They make all kinds of tools you can put in your drill press. Much easier to do in a lathe, I imagine. We don't have one in the shop. But if I did a lot of this work, this is something we'd be tooling up to do. But for doing it by hand, these Irwin bits or bits that are like them, I highly recommend them. I'll post a link below. Go check them out. So whether you've got nice taps and dies or not, this little chamfer right here on the end, just gonna help you out. It's gonna be your friend. It's gonna help you get that into it so you can start cutting the thread and cleaning up and get rid of any kind of loose scale that might wanna pop off. That way you can take care of your dies. It's gonna be a huge help for you. So we're gonna thread this guy and then we're all but done. Man, we've got all our threads cut. Moment of truth, let's see if it fits. Ha 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 ha! So we got a little 3/8 bolt in the bottom, that's all we did. And what we're gonna end up doing is welding that, cutting it, and grinding it. And that way it's a nice seamless transition. If you want, you can even heat that area back up and wire brush it and like it was never there. This guy comes off and it's mainly decorative. It does nothing for helping you take off the paper towel roll. We didn't stick a big spike up the side. Some people like that spike in the side. A lot of times with my paper towel holders anyways, when I'm coming to grab them, I grab from the top, pull out as many as I need. That was a bad sound. That's better. And I'm good. You can stick one on there if you want to, get real decorative, but I like this. Now, how are we gonna clean it up? Because that looks like it'll get beat all to bits in the tumbler. So glad you asked. You know nobody really asked, right? Shh, sorry. You know, you're 100% right. And off the top of my head, I can't think of any other workarounds that really work too well. After getting that ground off, I'm wire brushing. I'm gonna twist it in here. Because if you stuck that thing in their hole, toss it, turn it on, and walk away. Chances are that it would probably get beat up, bent up. Wait. Break the weld off or bend up the beginner channel. Bend up the thread. Fancy tumblers yet, okay, fella? Show off. Probably just gonna have to wire brush it. It would be great if somebody came up with an idea where you could affordably polish your metal without having to spend all night at a bench grinder or angle grinder. But until then, I guess that's what we're gonna have to do. How about that protects the threads? I wonder if that'd prevent anything from getting in there. Who knows? Oh no, not the nubbin! What shall we ever do? Boy, I sure hope that protects it. Wow. So we got this guy finished up. It turned out pretty nice. And using that 3/16 plate, it's not too heavy. You can definitely bump it up to a 1/4 inch and go as thick as you want. I love this. It looks nice in the kitchen, looks nice on the counter, hand forged, and I like the connections on them. That's the big thing I like because you can't see any of the connections. Yeah, I love this. I love this little swell at the bottom and the fact that you're not hiding a weld there at the bottom and right here at the top. I mean, it twists in, but man, it's nice. Another thing that's great about this is you can disassemble it, unassemble it, I don't know, whatever the right word is. And you can probably ship this much easier than the box you'd have to find to ship that. That's another big thing that I like about it. Just something to think about. If you're gonna do that and if it fits a certain way, make sure you're labeling bottom and top for your customer. So that's all I got for today. Appreciate y'all being here. Hope you find it helpful. I hope you learned something today. And we'll see y'all tomorrow. Thank y'all.